Hi, and welcome to the Ascended Thread podcast. I'm Andrea Clem, owner of The Way Home to You.
And I'm Dana Swaza with One Thread Healing. And today our guest speaker is Colleen Taylor. And she's a good friend of both Andrea and myself. So we thought perfect to have her on our call today. And Colleen is a certified end-of-life doula and a Reiki practitioner, a hospice volunteer, and advanced care planning consultant who supports individuals and families in navigating aging and end of life with clarity and compassion. So, Colleen, we're going to have to definitely talk about like what an end of life doula is because I know most people probably don't know what that is, even though I think a lot of people have heard of birth doulas. So we'll definitely get into that topic. But I guess I wanted to ask you, what have you done? Like what all modalities have you done and or trainings? And then like what were you doing that like led you to where to becoming an end of life doula?
Okay, well, that's a kind of a long history, but
I
I'll
know
try to
it is, it is.
I'll
But
try
you
to
can
shorten it.
summarize. You can summarize.
Yeah, I'll try to shorten it. I guess basically what happened to me was about 9 years ago after a long caregiving journey with my mom and her cancer journey over 20 years, her ending up in hospice and walking her through that phase of life. I also had an awakening that year. So it was the proverbial 2x4 over the head of a lot of things happening to me in my life that year. She passed away. I had a heart issue where I actually experienced a somewhat like a non near death experience of my own. And then I also lost my job that same month. So within 6 months, my whole life had really pulled the rug out from under me. I was already spiritual, but I didn't really know a lot about a lot of things, a lot of modalities and, guides and allies and the shamanic world and Reiki. I didn't know anything about any of that. So, um, I started going to different groups and learning about all of that. And I was really drawn to Reiki. So I was also really drawn to the shamanic practices. Those were the first things I started learning. The journey work was really important to me. I adapted to that like a fish in water. That was clicked for me, all the things that were being taught. So I learned that first. And then a few months later, not long after that, I learned Reiki. And then I just understood how I work as an energetic being and how energy works in our world and how I can help people with that. But I spent probably a good 5 or 6 years just working on myself and doing a lot of inner work and a lot of healing. I had a lot of things about my life that was difficult that I needed to resolve. So, but about a year and after my mom passed, my dad was had dementia. He already did, but about a year and a half later, I actually had to start taking care of him.
Mhm.
And so we're in the Denver, Colorado area, and they lived over by Grand Junction in Parachute. And I had to move him over here, get him into memory care, and basically take care of all the house, the belongings, everything. So that was a big upheaval in my life again. And then it was just him and I really. So I learned a whole lot about dementia. um, I learned a whole lot about death and dying. There were several people in his facility that died. One gentleman died while I was there, and it was his roommate. And I had an experience with that. So I just kept having these experiences with death coming into my life. And I've always been very upfront about death and dying. My mom and I talked about it a lot. So I was doing the doula work before I knew what doula work was. So I was helping her confront her fears because she was afraid. She told me she was afraid. Um, I was talking to her about all her journeys all the time with because she was on life-saving treatments a couple different times and asking her, so why didn't you give up? You everything was shutting down. You could have easily just gone. And And she just had a will to live like no other. But she said to me, frankly, right into my face, was, I don't know. I just feel like I had more to live. So she really taught me a lot about meeting people where they are. And even though I didn't want her to suffer anymore and go through more
Mhm.
treatments, she continued to get treatments because she kept getting a new kind of cancer. And it was interesting to watch. At the very end, she was still very much in fear. And I just, through that and my dad's experience and taking him off life support at the end of his life, I just realized I'm really built for this. Like I understand, I can walk with people in that journey and just provide a compassionate presence and meet them where they're at. With my dad, that was the one really good thing that I learned from my parents, is talking about what they wanted, their wishes at the end of life. And so my dad and I had planned his end of life, had did his paperwork several years before all this happened. And so when the time came, I knew what he wouldn't want.
Mhm.
The scenario in the hospital wasn't exactly what we planned on, but I knew what he wouldn't want. And with my spiritual energetic gifts, I could actually kind of meet him at a soul level, and I could feel that he wanted to leave the body. And so when I did make that decision, because they were wanting to do more treatments, that he was in ICU and the doctors were presenting all these different treatments, and I was exhausted after being up for almost 30 hours and having to decide, you know, life or death, basically. When I sat with him and his soul, I knew he didn't want to stay anymore. So when the treatment stopped and we let him just go into comfort care, he passed in 20 minutes. And it
Yeah.
was such a quick thing. I realized how much it was needed. But I also, that was the first time I was present for an actual soul leaving the body at that minute. And it was such a juxtaposition because I was experiencing grief as a daughter and all the things that I had just gone through in the last 36 hours, but also his soul leaving the body and how phenomenal that was. He wasn't suffering anymore. And the high vibration, I energetically felt that being go out of that physical body. And I called it before the nurse called it. I said, he's gone. And the nurse was like, oh, no, I think he's still there, still. And oh, yeah, he's gone. If you just took a few seconds for the monitors to catch up with what I had already felt. And
Mhm.
it was just such an eye-opening experience that, if we can meet people where they're at and be a compassionate presence and talk about what you do and don't want, so that when the time does come, it's not such a burden on your family. I just felt a really big purpose in that. And I think people are denying death a lot these days. They're not talking about it. They're just so afraid of it, thinking I don't know if they think they're going to bring it on themselves if they talk about it, or it's a lot of people, it's just sad, right? But I always say, if we can talk about it and normalize it and connect with it with care and compassion, I think we can address it the same as birth. And we can celebrate the birth. Can we celebrate the life that we had and are leaving as well? And I know it's sad and there's grief. I had a lot of grief in my life, so I understand that. But I think we can also celebrate their life and that
Mhm.
they're no longer suffering in their human body. And that's an individual journey for each and every one of us. What's our line in the sand for quality of life? And I always ask that people, what's your line in the sand? Where would you not want any more treatments? Because I kept asking my mom, I'm like, you're gonna go through another cancer treatment? I was just like blown away that she was thinking that she could even withstand another cancer treatment. Her little frail body was about to collapse. But her spirit knew she wanted more life. So I had to honor that too. So there's both spectrums, right? And it was just so much education in the co-creation of my relationships with my parents. And I did bookkeeping and accounting before this. So it was like a total turn in my life path.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and I know you want to, I know that's one of your missions, just in talking with you as a friend, is to normalize death and make it not so fearful, because we all have a fear of death, but whether we want to accept that or not, I think we all have a fear of death. And I know it sounds crazy to like talk about celebration of death, but I experienced that myself. You helped me with with my mom's passing, because I called you up and I was like, can you help me with help, making it, graceful and easy for her. And I knew it's funny because we all did, there was one person in particular who had a resistance and didn't want to do the like, last prayer, or whatever, to send her off in a blessing or whatever. And then when they came around, I had a feeling, then they were going to wheel her to a different room, like a private room out of ICU. And I just had a feeling, like you said, I had a feeling like once they were moving her from one room to the other, because all of us were gone, I had a feeling that's when she was going to go. It was just a feeling. And then when we went to go see if she was in her room, me and my sister, I was like you. I immediately knew she was gone. I'm like, oh, she's gone. And the nurse was like, oh, no, she's not. No, she's not, And then she took her by, like listened to her heart and stuff. And then she's like, I'm not sure. And then she went and got a head nurse. And then the head nurse confirmed, yeah, she's gone. I'm like, I know, I could have told you that. But then like not long after that, in my 3 to 6 months after that, my uncle passed away, and I also asked you to help him with his transition. And that was the first time I had experienced a celebration. And I'm like, oh, I wish I could have had this. I mean, I feel like I kind of did with my mom because I feel like I was way more calm about my mom than I normally would have been, just based on my spiritual path and stuff. So I feel like I handled it really well. But once my uncle was, going, when they put him in comfort care at the hospital, and it was the most interesting experience because I did all of a sudden feel that celebration for him. I'm like, oh, I'm so happy for you. You're gonna transition and you get to go home and you get to be with your soul family again, like my mom and his wife and their sister, I could just feel that, like how excited he was and how happy he was. And then I felt like so happy and joyous for him. And I'm like, this is a very interesting experience. I loved it because I was like, oh, yeah, yay, happy. I'm happy for you.
Yeah, I think there can be joy and grief at the same time.
Right.
I think especially at the end of a life that had physical, mental problems, dementia, but a lot of physical issues where they're really struggling with being in the body anymore, and all the treatments and all the, not being able to live their life fully anymore, not being able to do the things they want to do. There's suffering that's with that. And we're all going to go. I mean, that's a basic leveling aspect of being human. We are all going to go. But being able to be calm and compassionate and caring and go, okay, let's do this in the most reverent way we can then. It's going to
Hmm.
happen. It's either going to happen tonight or it's going to happen a week from tonight, because somebody who's in ICU with about at the end of their life is going to go. It's
Yeah.
just a matter of how much more treatments and suffering we're going to put upon them. Um, and I shouldn't say it that way, that they might choose as well. So they might choose treatments, right, till the very end. And
Right, right.
and that's their choice, and we have to honor that.
Yeah.
But we also can just let people go in a compassionate, reverent way and say, I honor you. Thank you for being in my life. Thank you for being the person that you were to me. And even if it was a difficult relationship, we can still thank them for the blessings of the opportunities to learn from them in some way. But I just feel that everybody should be in a peaceful, compassionate presence when they go, and just
Yeah.
be, a calm, so that it eases their journey getting out of the body. They always say there's labor at the beginning of life when mom's going to labor. There's also a little labor getting out of the body. And we're not
Hmm.
taught that. We don't know that. We like I worked with a hospice patient. It was one of another enlightening experience. She didn't have any family. She didn't have anyone around there. She was actually in a facility, and she was a guardian of the state. She didn't have any relatives overseeing her, not at the end of her life. So it was us, the volunteers and the hospice staff at the very end, mostly the volunteers. And what I picked up from her energetically, and this is where my modalities really come into really highlighted at the end of life when I work with people leaving, is I'm able to just send Reiki and give them a really nice, calming, peaceful energy to be in. And you can feel their body relax when that happens. It's just amazing. But I get messages now too. So I got kind of her coming to me energetically saying, okay, well, now what? Like she wasn't sure how to let go, how to get out of the body. And I'm like, I never thought of it that way. We are not taught how to actually get out of the body.
Right.
So I just energetically kept talking to her and saying, just relax, just let go. You're okay. You're loved, just all of the things. And she did relax. And another volunteer came in after me that night, and then she left the next morning peacefully.
Yeah.
So
Can you give like a little quick summary, I mean, of what an end of life doula, like how you are impactful for both the person who's transitioning as well as family members? Can you kind of give us some ideas of what end of death doula does?
right. So a doula is a non-medical professional, basically. So we actually are complementary to hospice, because people always say, well, if I have hospice, why would I need a doula? Well, that's another thing in our society right now, is I don't think people understand a whole lot about hospice and what they do and don't do. So I learned a lot of that through my mom's journey, but they're not there all the time. They're just not. So a lot of the times the caregiving is on the family. So the family is generally going to be the person probably to hire us. It could be somebody who is at the end of their life, a younger person diagnosed with a terminal illness, who would like to hire doulas, because I had an acquaintance friend who was in his 40s and had colon cancer, and he didn't have any family, was estranged, and he hired doulas to be around him at the end of his life. So what we're trained in is holistic support, so the emotional, mental, and spiritual journey. But we're also trained, the school that I went to get my certification, and there is no governing body for end-of-life doulas. There is for birth doulas now, so we're hoping that eventually does get there for insurance. But we're trained in the different various stages of dying, how the body shuts down. We're trained in what hospice does and doesn't do, and their medical training, understanding the comfort medication. So we don't administer any medication, but we're trained on what most of those medications are, and we understand how to administer them, so we can enforce the hospice education about how to care for their loved one. Because basically that's what hospice is doing. They're medical. So the difference is time and roles. They're in there for a short period of time. They're administering the medication, making sure that all the equipment is in place. And if the family needs anything, what else do they need? And then they're gone in about an hour. So the rest of the 23 hours of the day usually falls onto the family. There is a CNA that can come depending on what hospice you're with, that will help shower and bathe, maybe every day, maybe every other day. With Medicare governing hospice, the social worker and the chaplains are only required, and the volunteers, only required to visit once a month. The family can request more visitations, but there's really not a lot there as far as being physically in the house with the family. And most people, and I always say, if your loved one got diagnosed with a life-terminating illness or was unconscious, would you know how to care for them? Would you know what to do? That's where a doula comes in. So we're going to come in and go, this is how we're going to apply comfort measures. We're going to reposition them. Here, we're needing some more comfort meds. He's suffering a little bit. The breathing's getting labored. They're wincing. We can tell those signs where somebody's really uncomfortable. And then we can be the eyes and ears for hospice to come and do a call and say, hey, because they are on call 24/7, and say, hey, we need you to come out and assess this person because their pain looks like it's getting out of control, where the family would not maybe recognize those signs, right? And so when pain gets out of control, it's really hard to bring it back under control once it's on its freight train journey of pain control. So bringing it back under control can be difficult, and we want to get it stabilized before it gets out of control. So a doula can help with that. But doulas also help with the mental emotional. So working with the patient, mainly the family, about acceptance of where this person is at in their life journey. Do they need to talk through accepting, forgiveness, all the things that might come up at the end of life, resolving a lot of things. We can do legacy work, so we can do things for memory work for people, for loved ones, grandchildren, if it's a spouse, or just children, whoever, and say, do you want to do a recording? Do you want to make some cards that they can open on their 21st birthday? Do you want to, what things do you want to leave for your legacy, as far as, because it's not about the jobs and the money. It's not, it's about the memories. It's all about the memories. So making sure that they've put something in place to say, this is who I was, and I want you to know me, even though I've been gone for a while. And I'm going to be around you, and I'm going to remember you on your 21st birthday, or the day that you get married, or your first child that you have. I'm going to be there. And just putting those written or recorded things in place. I love that aspect of doing doula work. And then we also do vigil work. So we sit vigil at the 11th hour. I'm the 11th hour volunteer for my hospice there. I'm the one they call when people don't have family, or if the family wants somebody to help them, just support them. So volunteer work is different than the doula work, because as a volunteer,
Right.
I'm limited to what I can do. But as a doula, I that's where I get the planning in. What do you want your space to look like? Who do you want around you? What music and sounds do you want on? Because the ears, the hearing is the last to go.
Mm.
They can still smell and hear. They might, when they get into the deep sleep coma, they may not be opening their eyes or making any, not talking, not eating, all those things, right? But they can still hear and smell. So do we want sports on, or do we want soft music? And it's going to depend on everybody, right? Maybe somebody wanted their favorite show on and they just want to listen to that. And who do you want? Do you want neighbor Bob from down the street coming in to say his last goodbyes? Maybe not. Maybe just close friends and family, right? At that very last time frame. And then I work energetically with them too, to just find out what's holding them here, what maybe they're resisting, or
Mhm.
still in the body, but maybe in that deep coma and haven't left yet. So I think I did that for your husband's grandma. That was probably our first occurrence. And there was resistance in the family that I picked up
Oh, yeah.
on, where they didn't want to be in the same room, and she was trying to resolve that before she left.
Right. She's like, it's time for those boys to finally make up.
And I was picking up on this energetically. I did not know her. I didn't know anything about the
Right.
family, and I'm like, so why can't you guys all go say goodbye again? And they told me, and I'm like, oh, that's what she's sticking around for.
Right.
She's trying to resolve it. She did end up going because she realized she couldn't do that on this side of the veil. She decided she would be better going across, that her body
Right.
wasn't giving.
And after she passed, they do now. They do have a good relationship now, which is like no one would ever imagine, because it had been years, but yeah, they are better now. So yeah.
Yeah, and I just got goosebumps because I think she worked on that. She
Yeah.
made that happen somehow.
Right. 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 Yeah.
So, there can be resistance for that person leaving. And I think that's the other thing that we need to do as far as the loved ones, is giving them permission to go. So that
Right.
was where I clued into that. I'm like, have you all said goodbye and given her permission? And you're like, yeah. And then we found out what happened. But that's where I work with the families, because people will stay longer than they probably, want to or should, or the body is ready to go, but
Right,
they're going
right.
to say, I'm waiting for that birthday. It's right around the corner. I don't want to pass on Christmas. I'm going to wait for that to go by. Or
Mm.
I'm waiting for everyone to leave the room because I don't want them to watch me die.
Right, exactly.
So that happens a lot too, where people
Yeah,
will go the second you could be there holding vigil for 24 hours. The second you go to the bathroom, they're going to pass. And
yeah.
that's just the way they want it.
Right, right.
I do believe our soul has control over how we leave at the very end.
Mhm.
I've just witnessed too much not to believe that.
Yeah. And you also do like paperwork, like paperwork with people while they're still healthy, healthy and aging, or even like my age, to help with so that a lot of this is in place. Can you explain more about that?
Yeah, so I think people are confused about really what paperwork needs to be done as a end-of-life doula. What I call myself is an advanced care planning consultant. So I help with people with their end-of-life planning, the medical POA, the living will, and all the way through bereavement. So that's the other thing that I help with too, is the end of life, is the funeral, the celebration of life, whatever at the end. So I don't leave after the person passes away. I stay with the family if they want me to, but I have that capacity to help them plan. But ideally, we do that now. I ask for people, please do this planning now, please,
Mhm.
because it is a huge gift to your family. And that was, like I said, with my dad's journey, that was my gift from him, as we had talked about it. I knew it, he didn't want a feeding tube, and we had a problem with a stricture of his esophagus. And so I was constantly getting treatments done for him to stretch the esophagus, because I'm like, he does not want a feeding tube. So if he wants to continue to eat, we got to continue to get these treatments. So I knew that, and actually that wasn't a factor at the end of his life, which was interesting. But I knew enough. That was just one indication that we had gone through, that what he didn't want. He made me his medical power of attorney, so I had complete control over any decision making that he needed. And with dementia, that was a huge responsibility. I made the call on everything, every medication, every treatment, everything, while he was incapacitated for his cognitive abilities. um, and so we want to do that for ourselves, and we want to have alternates too. So you want to have a main person and you want to have two backups in case that main person can't do it or isn't around. And I want people to review these things too, because relationships change. So if, all of us in our 40s, 50s, 60s, relationships change, and people in our relationships die.
Mhm.
So, like he had his wife, my mom, as his first power of attorney, and then me after that. Well, mom died, so then I was his
Right.
alternate. So we need that backup plan as well, and we can redo it. We don't have to, once you do these things, it's not set in stone forever and ever, amen. It's you can review them every few years and go, I want to change that. I actually like end of life planning. I don't want a casket planning. I'm actually into this water cremation thing that's happening. I really like that, so maybe I want to change it to that. And you can redo your paperwork. You can always do that. But people don't know what the living will is versus the last will and testament. The living will is your life sustaining treatments. Like I was talking about, your line in the sand. What treatments would you want or not want if you were unconscious or incapable of making those decisions yourself? And these are the things we need to talk about with our loved ones and our families. We also need to get it in writing, because I do know, and it's been talked about in my doula coaching, and it's been talked about with friends. Family members, especially like adult children, will say and hear one thing versus a sibling will say and hear a different thing from what mom's talking about.
Right.
And there can be an argument. And that can be a relationship ending thing. When mom goes, someone says, no, um, she wanted tube feeding. And the other sibling's like, no, I can't even stand to watch this. I know she wouldn't want that. Right. So then there's distress in the relationships of the family over what mom would have wanted. So we need to put those things in writing so that there's never any discrepancy. So even if you have talked about it, it might have been interpreted differently on different family members based on the conversation that was had.
Right.
So I
Really,
advocate for those in writing. Go ahead,
yeah.
Andrew.
Sorry, I was just going to say it really helps the family out to plan in advance because when you're dealing with this grief and to make these decisions can be very difficult too. So to have
Right.
stated helps them out so much.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to add on is when we do this, the gift that we're giving our loved ones is huge because that takes the burden off of them. Because what you're doing is you're making your decisions. This is what I do want, this is what I don't want. I'm asking my power of attorney, healthcare proxy, they're interchangeable, to make these decisions for me if I'm incapacitated, but I've already told you what I want. So there really isn't any decision making. I've already told you. So
Mhm.
I need
Yeah.
you to follow through with me is really what I want you to do.
Right.
If I'm unconscious in a coma, then this is what I don't want. So follow through with that for me. And that's important too, that I think people don't think about is when you have a POA, somebody who's going to make those decisions, that call in the doctor's office, there's immense overwhelming anxiety when somebody's in ICU or coming out for a surgery and it didn't go well. And what other treatments are you going to get done? Right. I felt it with my dad, but I knew we had that conversation. So I knew, and that took a huge lift of burden and guilt off of me. I didn't feel like I was playing God by taking him off the machines. I knew he wanted to go, that he wouldn't have wanted to live that way and endure more treatments. So that's what we do for our adult children or whoever, our spouses who are going to be there for us in that time of need. And it's going to happen along our life journey. It's going to happen. We're going to experience a spouse taking care of a spouse, or we're going to experience a parent leaving, or possibly, sadly, a child. So it is going to happen. We need to be prepared and we need to have the conversations.
Yeah. And then besides all of that you mentioned to help normalize death and this and that, you also host a monthly death cafe, right?
Yeah, so that's the monthly event that I do free for the community. It's on the third Sunday every month, and it's at Be a Tree, which is a cremation, water cremation company, and it's at their event center in Wheat Ridge. And they've donated their center to us for our monthly meeting. So we're immensely grateful for the space that they give because it's a beautiful room. And it's organic, natural discussion around death and dying.
Mm.
We don't hold any beliefs. There's no agenda. We ask that people introduce themselves a little bit and talk about why they came. And then the conversation just takes off from there. We don't really dig into any one particular topic at any time. It depends on who wants to talk about what. And that's been what's so great is every conversation every month has been completely different because we always get new people. We get some repeat people that like to come every month, but we always get new people. And there's always a lot of different questions that come up, and I learn so much from people. I'm always so curious when we have those. I'm always like, I wonder what we're going to talk about today.
Right.
But I know I'm a weird duck. I'm excited about talking about death and dying. But I do notice when people leave, they leave feeling lighter.
Right. And
And
that's what's important to you. So that, of course, that's why you're like, I really enjoy these because I'm really getting the word out and people leave lighter and not so heavy and not so scared. And yeah.
yeah, they get some questions answered, because like I said, people don't know how death takes place. They don't understand it. They don't know what they need to do to plan. They don't know why they can't talk. There's a lot of people show up, they say, I need to talk about this, and my family won't. So they have family members that
Right.
are in total denial about talking about the subject. And my heart hurts for them when that happens because they really don't have any support around the subject. And for me, my perspective is I just don't understand that because like I always say, we're all going to die. So we have to approach it. We have to start talking about it.
Right. We're maybe normalizing it more, right?
Yeah. I mean, when you Google what's the top 5 fears of anyone in life, well, death is right up there, right? If it's not the first one, it's second or third of anybody. What's your top fear? There's the public speaking, death and dying. Yeah,
Right.
all those things. It's right up there. And it's like, how can we normalize this? Because it shouldn't be the scariest thing. It really shouldn't.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
So much fear, right? Because we don't have normal conversations about it, or at least I don't.
Our society, our Western society in particular, is really in
Hmm.
a lot of denial about having any conversations. I think other countries and societies are a little bit better. I know Europe and Eastern countries, Asian countries are a little bit better about facing that situation. And that's the other thing. I mean, several hundred years ago, not even that much, maybe a couple hundred years ago, before hospitalization and hospice came along, we used to do this at home. The grandmother passed down these skills to her children. We used to have dying in the house. The
Right.
family, the loved one was surrounded by family and community. We were supported.
And it was kind of a celebration in a way, wasn't it? Like a rituals. It was ritual. It was
Yeah, depending
celebration,
on
like sending them off with good vibes and yeah.
yeah, depending on the culture, but
Right, right,
yeah, there was definitely much more reverence to an elder passing away and doing
right.
it with dignity and respect and
Mhm.
ceremony, and just honoring that life more.
Yeah,
And then that's just really changed a whole lot in the 100 years. But that the way of comforting them and taking care of them and making sure that they were, knowing when they were going to die, seeing the signs, usually the elder in the family, grandmother or whoever, had that skill and would pass that on. And that stopped. As
right.
in modern society now, I don't know very many people that know how to care for a loved one in a dying stage.
I agree. I agree.
So it's something that we need to learn again.
Right. Well, thank you for talking about all this with us. And people can receive more information about you or contact you through your email, which is perpetual wisdom LLC at gmail.com, correct?
Mhm.
And your website is perpetualwisdomllc.com. And
Yeah,
then you also have a Facebook page of Perpetual Wisdom LLC.
correct. Correct.
Okay.
All that. And
We
I
will put that in the details in the YouTube. When this goes to YouTube, we'll put it in the comments section.
thank you. And the website is not up yet. It's under construction, but it's close.
Be very soon, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
And
understand that. I need to redo mine too
yeah.
sometime.
And I'm also continuing, I continue to grow and expand with my gifts that come in. So I'm also doing an evidential mediumship class right now that is year long. So I'm hoping to bring that gift to the public soon as well, being able to
Great.
do mediumship readings. So I feel like that's another way of healing with people, with their loved ones who have already passed, and reconciling and healing. And I know for myself, I've gone to a medium who really helped me with my loved ones that have passed, and just bringing in what needs to be said sometimes that wasn't said while they were still in the body. So there's healing on that level as well, and that's important to me. So I'm excited about that. It just lets
Yeah,
me
I think that will be great.
lets me work in a little bit more fun capacity.
Right, exactly, exactly. Well, thank you so much for coming on our podcast. We really appreciate it. We really
Mm.
enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you for having me. I'm so grateful that you invited me.
Oh, sure. Thank you.
This has been a great conversation. So thank
Yes.
you. All right.
All right. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Yep, sorry. Thanks everybody for joining us today. Make sure to like and subscribe on the video, and we'll be back in a couple weeks with Dana and I talking about another subject. So until then, hope you have a great time.
Bye.
Bye.